Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Follow Your Passion podcast. I'm your host, Erwin Wils. I'm a mindset and business strategist and founder of Millionaire Life Strategy. In this podcast, I'm interviewing my clients and other entrepreneurs that are following their passion and make a good living out of it. When you want to know more about me or what I can do for you, check out my website, millionaireLifestrategy.com. But first, check out this episode of Follow Your Passion. Hi everybody, please meet my next guest, Sarah Dunn. She's helping people declutter and organize their things, leaving them with space that matters most to them. And she has the perfect surname because her surname is Dunn, of course, and her company name is Getting Things Done. And that's exactly how Sarah does it. She also says that organizing is so much more than house cleaning. It's actually more therapy. And I know that, I'm a mindset specialist, and I know that decluttering your environment will also decluttering your mind. So that's why Sarah also says that the work she does stems from empathy. She loves to help people and see them transform actually when she's doing the work. And that's, I think, the most rewarding what you can ever do. So please welcome Sarah. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Would you like to share how you started out as a decluttering expert?
Yeah, sure. So, starting from a young age, I was always wanting to reconfigure my space. I just realized my environment really affects how I show up in the world. So I would, a couple times a year, I would go through all my things, rearrange my room. And then friends started to pick up on that and know that I really liked to declutter and help them organize. And then my professional background actually stems from working in events. So I was working for an event venue in San Francisco for about 5 years. And during that time, when we would be running an event, and there was a little bit of downtime for me, I would go downstairs to our storage unit and I would reconfigure everything and organize it because we were constantly going through cleaning supplies and other event-related things. So while I was working there, the owner purchased Marie Kondo's book for me. And if you don't know who Marie Kondo is, she's like a Japanese organizational specialist. And she's the woman who came up with this concept of, does this item spark joy for you? And when I read the book, I was like, oh, so this person speaks my language. Like, this is how I see the world. And I'm pretty ruthless. Like, if this item doesn't spark joy or if it doesn't have a purpose in my life, then I either pass it on to somebody who does, somebody who might benefit from it, or donate it, get rid of it in some way. So from there, I wanted to, after I kind of got burnt out in events, I wanted to start this organizing job. It took a little longer than expected because the pandemic hit. So I ended up taking a remote job for about a year. But once the things started to open back up, I decided, okay, like now is the time. That was about a year ago. And it's been pretty busy ever since.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But how is that in the US as well? Are people more working remotely now, and they discover that their environment is not fit for working actually?
Yeah, I think so. I think that played a huge role into like the success of the beginning of my business. Was people had been working at home for about a year and a half, as I was starting this business. And so they were spending more time around their things and also having to turn their living room into also workspace or use their spare bedroom as their office or whatever. So, they're finding that they were having to like make use of these spaces for multiple ways. So I think that really helped when I started this business. They're like, okay, I need someone to come in and like help me rethink this. This is not working for me.
Nice. And are the clients themselves that ask you for help, or could it also be their spouse that's asking them to help them?
A little of both, for sure. It's funny. I often work with couples, and the wife will always be like, well, he has so many old CDs and we don't even listen to CDs anymore. And then he'll say, well, she has so many hair products. And I'm like, everyone's guilty. We all have our thing. And it's really easy, I think. And this isn't, this goes for both organizing and other things, is it's really easy to see other people's defaults more than your own. So I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, that's also what I always say, we don't see our own blind spots and we need an external person to show them to you. So I guess it's the same with your decluttering activities.
Yeah, I think it does help when the person reaching out is the one that actually has finally like hit their breaking point and they're the one that wants to get organized. I mean, I think this and the work that you do is like, you can't ever change another person. Like the change has to come from you, or, your desire to change has to come from within. So,
yeah. Is it hard for your clients to ask for help, or do they feel a bit ashamed when you arrive at their home?
100%. Yeah. So many people, I mean, I commend them so much for finally reaching out and saying, okay, I want to get help. And then when I show up to either do a consultation or for the first day on the job, they're like, oh, I've had so many people be like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, oh, it's such a mess. Or like, because it's so intimate. I'm going inside. I've never met these people. And then I'm going inside and looking in all of like the dark corners of their house, which to me is like looking inside their brain. That's how I see it. That may be like a little too deep for people, but I think it really does show. You see a lot when you open up and you expose the way like these people are living. I am like, I don't think anything of it, right? I've seen it all. I've literally seen it all. And every day, in some ways, every day surprises me, and at the same time doesn't surprise me at all, because I'm like, oh, this is the weirdest day. But yeah, people definitely feel that sense of embarrassment or shame, and I always remind them, like, you're taking the first step. Like, this is awesome that you're reaching out to get help. So there's nothing to feel ashamed about.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I have the same with my clients as well. Sometimes they feel ashamed to share what's bothering them, and then by giving them positive feedback, but you're here. You took the first step, so you're ready to transform, And it may be awful what you've been through, but it's so rewarding that you're able to help them.
Definitely.
Yeah. Nice. So could you, do your clients also transform once you've helped them? Would you be able to say that?
I think so. I mean, I get a lot of people, it's weird because from an external perspective, if people look at my social media or my website, they go, okay, she like redid someone's closet or, organized their garage. And it may seem like a very superficial thing. But deep down, I mean, I had a client yesterday, she's 80 years old. She's writing a book. She reached out to me a couple of months ago saying, I'm getting older. I don't want to spend the rest of my time looking for things. I have this desire to write and finish this book, and that's what I want to focus my time on. And so we went in, a team of 3 people, completely reorganized her space. She got rid of a fair amount of stuff. She passed a lot of things on to family members with a story. And she said to us yesterday, like, you have completely changed my way of living. And I'm so excited to be able to sit down and focus and not worry about like the other things. Even though she kept a lot of stuff too. It's not like we went in and just like threw out her belongings,
No.
We just made sense of it and gave her the opportunity to go through a lot of things. And so I think it has a much greater, the work that we're doing has a greater impact on people than just like, oh, we color coded their closet. It's like, no, it's like a massage for the brain. And people do really walk out transformed on the other side.
Oh, I can imagine. It's what you say. It's so much more than just decluttering, and it's not only that hoarders are benefiting from services, right? It's just the average person that's already helpful. If you make their environment more efficient and more, you actually bring them more clarity, not only physically but also mentally, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I've also, and that's something that I remember, that sometimes you get this remark for, please don't clean up my stuff, otherwise I can't find it. Have you met those people as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's yeah, there are some people that operate, they're in a chaotic environment, and yet they feel like that's where they do their best work. And I know that there are some people, creatives especially, that do feel like, I have a system. You can't see it, but the system is there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, but by the time most people are reaching out to us, they are ready for something different, and know that the current system they have may not be working well for them. So for the most part, I think they're open and willing to hear our feedback. And things can be
Yeah.
simple, like simple little changes, like why do you have the coffee cups here, but your coffee machine is on the other side of the kitchen? And people are like, I never really thought about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for me, it's like I would just put them right above the coffee machine. That's just an
Yeah.
example. So sometimes it's just pointing out these little things that people are like, oh yeah, I've never realized like how inefficient I set up my space, or I never thought about it when I moved in here. I just put stuff away and then I had to like live my life.
Yeah.
And now we're here. So
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the story. I'm not sure if you heard it, but it's the story about this woman that's cooking for Christmas, and
uh-huh.
she has this big meatloaf, but she's always cutting off the edges, right?
Hmm.
And her daughter sends to her and she asks, Mom, why are you cutting off the edges? Well, that's how my mother did it, right? And I learned it from her. And so she asked grandma and she said, well, I learned it from my mother, right? That's how she baked all those meatloaves. And they went to their mother and she said, why are you cutting off the edges of the meatloaf? And she just said, well, otherwise it wouldn't fit the pan, right? So, and it's just a habit that people copy and take over without realizing it. Just like you said, if you're putting the cups of the coffee cups in the neighborhood of the coffee machine, it
Mhm.
makes total sense.
Yeah.
But if somebody's used to put them over there, they don't think about it anymore. It has become a habit.
Yeah. Yeah. And we totally learn. I think a lot of people, learn their habits inside their home for sure, from their elders. And so many people reach out to me and they're like, well, I grew up in a hoarder house, or I grew up with somebody who never wanted to get rid of anything. And and oftentimes, like you would know too, like that stems from like the psychology of their upbringing, or their life. So that, that feeling of like, oh, I don't want to get rid of anything, comes from like a scarcity mindset. Well, why do they have a scarcity mindset? Maybe because they grew up during the Depression, or they always grew up like, living check to check. And for them, like just to have things, toys, whatever, it was really special to them. So they didn't want to get rid of anything.
Yeah.
And we totally learn everything from our past, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I can totally relate to that. Just what you said earlier about this man that had too many CDs, right?
Yeah.
You buy the CDs, there's music on it, and you don't want to throw them away because it feels like you're losing the music,
Hmm.
and not realizing that everything is already on Spotify, right?
I
You
know.
can have the whole CD, you can have its whole genre of this artist on Spotify, but
Hmm.
you still bought this somehow because you like the music, and it doesn't feel right to throw it away if it's not broken, right? And I guess you
Yeah.
also meet a lot of those people, that if it's not broken, don't throw it away, even though it has lost its value in such way.
Yeah, people definitely struggle with getting rid of things that have perceived value, or like there's knowledge within it. So like books, I find
Mm.
people are like, oh, like they don't want to get rid of their college textbook. And I'm like, well, have you looked at it since you were in college? They're like, no. But they feel like if they throw it away, they're losing the value, when they've already lost probably 50% of the value anyway, depending on how good their memory is. And also, it's something that's easy to obtain. You can rent that. Most likely, you can rent the book that you are letting go, or like passing on to somebody else. And then, yeah, if we've spent money on something, even if we're not using it, and it doesn't, people to say, well, it still has value, and it's useful. And I'm like, well, it's really not useful if you're not using it.
Yeah.
it's really nothing to you. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah, people's attachment to things and what we hold on to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great saying, by the way. It's really not useful if you're not using it. And it makes total sense, but yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have could you come up with an example of somebody that was really grateful for having you in his or her life, that you really felt you made a real difference to them?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. One woman I helped about a year ago move into her place. So she had like a leg injury, ended up in the hospital. It ended up getting infected. So she ended up being in care for a really long time. They moved her into a nursing home with elderly people. I'm kind of giving a lot of the backstory, but yeah, so they moved her into a nursing home so she could get 24-hour care while this wound was healing. And then the nursing home ended up being an abusive situation. So she ended up filing like a report on this nursing home because she was the only one in there that was young enough to really know what was going on. She was still with it. A lot of the people there were old and kind of, probably had dementia. So she got that place closed down. She was living with a friend for a while and eventually got to a point where she could move back into her place on her own. But she was still, she was bound to a wheelchair. And so she really wasn't able to move into her house on her own. She was moving back into the apartment she used to live in. And so I showed up and it's a relatively small apartment, tons of boxes. And I still get messages from her today. And I spent 2 days there because I went back and brought a second person to help move her in, because the first day I realized there's no way I'm going to be able to do this all on my own, mainly because the space was so small. There was tons of stuff in it. And so I'd open a box and I'd be like, okay, well, this belongs in the kitchen, but the kitchen is already full of stuff. The counter space is full of boxes. Like, I don't have anywhere to even put this, to stage this. There was no outdoor space. There wasn't a garage. Yeah. So it was like, I was constantly just like trying to navigate and, open a box. Okay, this is craft stuff, but the craft area is full. So, and it was like, I had two goals that day. It was like to move her in, but also to declutter, to get to a space where all this stuff could fit. Yeah. And, I mean, this woman she left. And when I left, she was like in tears saying like, you have no idea how much this has helped me. I mean, she literally wouldn't have been able to do it without somebody. And it wasn't just me. I think a lot of people could have done it, but she sends me messages on the phone all the time saying, you really got me to think about things in a different light and think about what I need and what I don't need. And that means just so much to me when people, when they continue contact. That's so cool to me.
Yeah. And do you also do follow up with your clients after a few months or a certain period of time?
Yeah. Sometimes I follow up, especially if I know there are clients that stick out and I'm like, okay, I know they're going to need my help again, because it's a process, especially if they are addicted to shopping or have more things than the average person. They're going to need help again. And it's not organizing is not a one and done situation. I mean, I'd love for it to be, and I'd love to work with somebody for a week and be done. But the first go around, people are, not used to, their muscle memory of getting rid of things and letting go, isn't quite built up. And some people require that long-term attention. So to follow up with people on like a quarterly basis is really important. And other people are so willing and open to the changes that we've made in their home that they're eager to keep them up. And I don't hear from them. And I'm like, okay, I assume things are good because they haven't reached out.
Yeah, it reminds me of when we go on holiday, we go to a camping site. And if you go to, you have those central washing buildings, right? And if you go in and it's clean, right? You don't want to mess it around, you just feel this urge to keep it clean, right? And I think that's applicable at your house as well. If it's clean, then you want to keep it clean. It doesn't feel right if there would be any mess around, just leave it there. It doesn't feel right. So
Yeah.
I guess your clients are also adapting a new lifestyle once you've been around.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that we do and we come in and do is we establish systems for people. People are so used to not having a system. So they're like, I'm always losing my keys. And so, but they don't like know what the solution is to that. And I'm like, well, you put it in the same place every single time and we're going to set that place up today,
Yeah.
So I think that's where we really benefit, or where we come in to help people, is we're setting up the systems, and systems are easier to maintain if they're already established.
Yeah.
But for somebody who's not like very spatially aware, or that this isn't, they're not built with this gene, they're like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
That's where they reach out for help. And then once the system is established, they're like, yeah, I want to maintain this.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of your clients are also feel overwhelmed, not knowing where to start and stuff like that. And that's the beauty of again, your company name, Getting Things Done, is just get started. It doesn't matter where, you just have to get started.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how many people will use my business name when they reach out to me and they say like, I just want to get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't mean to be like clever or funny. It's just a common thing they say. And just having the momentum of us there and getting things done, I think it inspires people to do other things. Like I went back to a client yesterday who we hadn't seen for a couple of weeks, and she had a full house cleaning team. Like we do organizing primarily, but they were doing deep cleaning. She had her kids out front, like blowing leaves. They were just moving things around. I was like, wow, I think we really spurred some action inside of them.
Yeah. Nice.
And then I just wanted to make one note, because you brought up camping. And I think that this is important to say to people is, I think camping and doing trips like this, where you have to be, especially whether it's car camping, you take your car and you pack it up with things, or backpacking, either one, you still have to constrain yourself and be like, okay, what do I really need on this trip? I'm going to make food, but like, I don't want it to be too heavy because I'm going to have to carry it, whether it's just from the car to the campsite or on my back. I think you gain a lot from going camping and paring back and living with the essentials. But I think it's a good exercise to do, is like do little trips like this.
It reminds me as well of a television series I saw about tiny houses. Tiny House Nation. That families have this ideal image of living in a tiny house, not being bound to a certain area, being able to move around. Mm-hmm. And if the team goes in their current house and show them what it means to live in a tiny house, what space it is, the people are actually shocked to realize what it actually means to live in a tiny house.
Yeah. Totally. And it's so funny. I mean, I said earlier, we're all guilty of our own things, of what we hold on to and how much stuff we have. And I'm like relatively minimalist in terms of what I own. And I still have, 10 different pots and pans, and I primarily come back to one. I come back to one that I use all the time. I don't really use it for like soups, although I'm not eating soup very often, but I can make stir fries and eggs and like basically anything in this one pan. And yet it's almost like, why do I have the other ones? And I'm just going to say one other thing is like, I don't know if you know the story of Twitter and why the guy like started Twitter, what he thought about it. Are you still there? You look a little frozen. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Okay. So Jack Dorsey, when he was starting Twitter, originally his concept, I had never really been a Twitter user until I heard the story, and I was like, oh, I love this. He wanted a simple and short way to get information out to people. So you could basically be like news on the spot, and you would type a little thing saying, oh, there's an accident at 34th Street and A Avenue or whatever. And you only had limited characters to say so. So you had to be very direct. And he got that concept based off of, I think, railroad conductors
Yeah.
He used to be really obsessed with trains when he was a kid, and the train conductors used to have to use like basically a code to tell him like, I'm coming down this track and this is where I'm headed and this is what time I'll be there or whatever. So he kind of took that concept and made it into what Twitter is. And granted, now there isn't a character limit on Twitter. I think you can, or maybe there is, but it's not 180 characters like it used to be. But what he said is constraint inspires creativity. And I feel that in my own business. It's like, what is the least you can live with and still be happy? And earlier when you were saying, you know, people feel overwhelmed, I'm like, most people feel overwhelmed because they have too much stuff. They have too many things in their home or in their life that they have to be responsible for. So if they could pare that back, like it's just less things they have to worry about, less things they have to take care of. So that's all.
Yeah, and that's beautiful what you just said. And also what you said, you know, does this item spark joy for you? I think it's such a powerful question to ask yourself. You know, and I think a lot of people, and I must admit, I suffer from it as well. You know, if it's not broken, you don't want to throw it away.
Yeah.
You only want to throw away things that are broken, right? But why should I need a VHS recorder that's not broken, but you can't play the tapes anymore? There are no tapes anymore, right? But the recorder is still working. So, and I guess a lot of people have that, you know, or where each time that you're I'm not sure if it's in the US as well, but we have our subscriptions with our phones, you know, that each 2 years you are allowed to choose a new phone. Yeah. And with each phone you get a new some earplugs, right? They're wired. But I'm not using them, but they're stacking up because they're not broken. The great functioning earplugs, but I'm not throwing them away because they're not broken. So you can end up with 5-10 pieces of earplugs that are never get used, but somehow it doesn't feel right to throw them away.
Yeah, because you perceive that there's value in them and you perceive, well, they're useful.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, they're only useful if you're using them.
Yeah, I love that quote. I'm going to use it a lot of times, I guess. Yeah. So how does your spouse feel what you're doing? Does he also feels like I need to be organized as well? Or does he have something, well, Sarah will take care of it?
It's funny. I get that question a lot from my clients. They're like, well, is your house perfectly organized? Or like, is your partner just like this too? And the answer is no to both of those. You know, we live in our home and it does occasionally get messy or things get out of hand, but we do have systems. And for the most part, everything has a home. So we know where to put it back. But in terms of, what he thinks about what I'm doing, for the most part, he really tries to, keep things up. And something that I appreciate. I was like, my love language is like coming home to a clean sink. So I don't want to see dishes in the sink. And for the most part, he upholds that just because I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, not that I'm cleaning people's dishes, but I'm in people's, disorganized and chaotic homes that I want to come back to something that feels peaceful to me. But all in all, he's been so supportive. And I would not have done this business without him. He really encouraged me to do it. And he said, even the other night, he said, I really believe in what you're doing. And it means a lot after a year. I mean, after a year, I should believe it too. I've worked with nearly 100 people. So, and I do believe in what we're doing. But to hear it from him it means a lot. And it's really cool to have the support of somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if your spouse supports what you're doing, I think that's the best support you can have. Yeah.
Right? Your spouse believes in you, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also saw in an interview you gave that you got a German Shepherd as a pet, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a German Shedder. She sheds a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We got two dogs as well. So I know about all the hairs, so it's impossible to keep it clean.
It's insane. I mean, it's why we have a house cleaner come every other week. And it's like, I can do it myself. And for the most part, we keep things tidy, but it's so nice to have someone come in and like do a nice deep clean.
Oh, definitely. Well, I I actually had a funny story about a friend of mine. He has
Mm-hmm.
house cleaner as well, but his dogs are also shedding so much hair that he's vacuum cleaning before she comes, before he's a bit ashamed of all the hairs around.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said, why do
Yeah,
you have a house cleaner if you do it yourself? You know, it's her job. So let
yeah.
her take care of it. Otherwise, she has nothing to do.
Right, right. Yeah, that the cleaning before the people come is, I mean, I experienced that in when I show up to clients' houses. They're like, well, I was trying to get things organized for you. And I'm like, that's why I'm here. So don't worry. Like,
Yeah, exactly. But I
yeah.
also think that if you come to them and after this first impression, you know, that you have of the people, and you make them feel secure, so to speak, right? That it's you
Mm-hmm.
make them feel safe, that it's okay for them to be there, and that's the reason why you're there. I
Mm-hmm.
think it can also it can also be a release for them, you know, that I don't have to put up a mask or pretend that I'm somebody that I'm not. They just can be
Mm-hmm.
themselves, and I think that's also some added value what you deliver when you help them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it is cool. And like I said earlier, I mean, it's so intimate what we're doing, and I commend these people for reaching out and trusting basically a stranger to come into their home and evaluate how they're living. And
Yeah,
I don't take it lightly, and I feel humbled by the fact that people trust us, and yeah, it's so beautiful.
yeah. Do you get a lot of referrals from clients or?
Yeah, a fair amount of referrals. Yeah, I mean, so many people are like, I've told so many people about you. And then other people are like, I don't want to tell people about you until you're done at my house. It's like,
Ah,
I don't want to share the babysitter,
yeah.
that concept of like, oh, you're mine right now. So yeah, no, but it's in a lot of referrals, a lot of online reviews, which is so helpful for my
Yeah,
business.
I can imagine. Yeah, and it's wonderful,
Yeah.
you know, because um, we don't do it for ourselves. We do it for our clients, you know. And when you feel they succeed or they're happy and they're grateful, it
Hmm.
gives you a good feeling as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
Could you have ever thought to be in this business that you're in right now, where you, let's say, 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I would not have thought I'd be here at all. I did not see myself going this direction. But I'm so glad I did. I really am. And
Yeah.
even a year ago, my goal was to work with 10 people by the end of the year. And I worked with like 75 by the end of the year. I think we're at 90 clients now, something like
Ah,
that.
yeah.
So, in 1 year to like 9 times my goal was massive. And it's been so cool. I've met so many cool people, and something I do want to say too is like I had this idea that I was going to be working with like truthfully some like weird people, like people that are just living in really gross situations or just don't have their things together. And the truth is most people I've worked with have been really professional. They're really good at what they do. They're really big in their industry or really smart, really creative or whatever it is. And their brain just, this isn't where their brain is like, their house and their environment. That's not what they focus on. They're focused on building their own business or being the
Yeah.
best lawyer that they could be or the best doctor. And so to
Yeah.
have somebody like myself, a professional in my own industry come in, they're like, yes, this sense of relief that, oh, I'm still good at what I do, and this person is helping me so much as well.
Yeah. Nice. So what you just mentioned, you know, having a goal of helping 10 people, and you already helped over 90 people, which is great, of course. So what's your outlook for the next year? What would you like to be able to achieve?
Ooh, good question. For me right now, my big goal is I'm focusing on building our team. So I have 3 women working for me right now, 2 primarily, and I'm just bringing on this third. But with that, bringing on other people also means I have to up my marketing strategy. And bring in more business to make sure that I have enough work for 3 other people. So my big goals, are just continuing to develop the team. I would love for it to be like a 6-person team or an 8-person team, but I also have to make sure that the demand is there and there's enough inquiries coming in to make sense for that to make sense.
Yeah.
I know my goal should be very, what do you call it when you do SMART goals? So it's like, I can't remember what the S is. It's not strategic, specific. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah. I need a very specific goal. So with that, I'll say that I hope, in the next year, I have a team of 8 total people.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember when I was doing a training, we had to have a purpose to do the training because there was a daily mind feed to that. And it was a 2-year program. So we had to do a daily exercise for 2 years. And he said, you have to have a purpose, to be able to fulfill that. And I said, my goal was to become the best hypnotherapist of the world. And will I ever be? You're not hearing me say no, right? Will I be able to prove it? Probably not. Because if I say that I'm the best in the world, probably somebody will stand up and say, what are you talking about? I've already been in the business for 40 years. You're just coming, you're a newbie, right? But for me, it's not about achieving this goal, but just having this goal. It inspires me to keep growing, to develop, to learn from others that are further down the road than I am, to learn from my clients. So for me, it's not specifically for achieving this goal, but I'm just enjoying the journey.
I love that.
Right. So my goal is not that smart, but it keeps me evolving in a way.
Yeah.
So
that's beautiful. I love that.
And I love, it for you, it's about helping people and making a difference. And if you can leave a legacy like that and you can make this positive impact in their lives, I think it's the most rewarding thing you can do.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So now that you have been an entrepreneur for some time, do you have any tips or little pieces of wisdom you would like to share with the audience to inspire them as well, or something that you think everybody aspiring entrepreneur should know?
Yeah, I have 2 things. I know a lot of people want to go into business for themselves, and I think they should ask themselves, what is their intention? What's their purpose behind going into business for themselves? Do they just want to tell people they have their own business? Do they want to do something specific that they know they have the ability to do and to offer people, and they could build a business around it? So think about your intention, kind of like we were saying before. What's your intention? What's your purpose for wanting to start a business? And then, if you're having a hard time figuring out, okay, what is it that I want to do? There's that like Venn diagram called Ikigai. Have you heard of this?
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's like, finding, I think I wrote it down. It's like finding your, like what you're good at, what you can make money from, what the world needs. And then I'm forgetting what the last one was. But think about like, okay, what do people always come to you for? And is that, for me, it was like, oh, I need Sarah to come declutter my closet. I need her to help me. I need that like accountability partner. Maybe you're really good at, I don't know. It doesn't, just think about what you're really good at, and could you build a business around that? And is that something that the world needs? And does that light you up? Like, I go to work and most days, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like work. I don't wake up with anxiety or like dread or, just not wanting to do it. I really get excited by the people I work with and the work that we're doing. So think about, what lights you up too. And then the last piece of advice, and I think this is more so coming from my experience as like a service-based business, which is very different from building a product or building a platform or something like that. My business took very little investment to start. And by very little, I mean somewhere in the range of, over the course of a few months, like I would say somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 by the end of it, which may not seem like that little to some people. And I do understand that, but in the grand scheme of things, like it did not take $1 million to start. or even $100,000 to start. And, are you willing to give up $3,000 or $5,000 to try something for a few months and see if it works out? Because for me, that's ultimately what my partner said. Give it a try for a few months and see if it works out. And if it doesn't, you can always go back to the way things were. You can always get an events job. So knowing that it's not going to take a ton of money, or it doesn't have to, at least in terms of a service-based business. Perhaps you're like a photographer, and you're really good at, shooting people, and you do it for fun and that lights you up. Like, ultimately what you really need is a little bit of money for marketing and a website and maybe some camera gear, and you can start your business.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need a great office to start your business. I think most big companies, they just started just in their own house, in the garage or whatever. And it's all about what's in it for them, what's in it for the client, and as long as a client gets the results they're looking for, you're in business. Yeah. So great piece of advice indeed. So if people want to know more about you or get in touch with you, how can they do that, Sarah?
Yeah, they can go to Get It Dunn, DUNN, this is my last name, .co. And that's the same as my Instagram handle is getitdone.co. And we can connect there. Nice.
I really love talking to you, Sarah. Your energy,
Likewise,
I just feel how passionate you are about it, and it's not about just decluttering. It's really helping people and being there for them. That's already so much value that you deliver. So I wish you all the best in your business, and let's see where it takes you. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, likewise. It was so great chatting with you. And I appreciate the conversation and the opportunity.
You're welcome. I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to check out the other episodes, because each one is filled with interesting and inspiring stories and energy. Are you following your passion as well and make a good living out of it? Contact me and you could be my next guest. Would you like to follow your passion but are not there yet? Check out my website millionaireLifeStrategy.com and book an appointment to discover what I could do for you. Don't forget to share the podcast with your friends so that they get inspired as well.